Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon. So my talk today is about the wound construction, and the objectives are the incision creation in terms of location and architecture, and the second part is about the ophthalmic viscosurgical devices, tips and tricks. So, wound creation is critically important to have a successful phaco surgery, and a poorly made wound is gonna carry a significant consequences during the surgery and afterwards. So, to have a well-structured incision, it's important to have three components: that it is self-sealing, sutureless, and astigmatically neutral. In order to achieve that, you have to know and to have a strategy. You have to have a strategy where to place your wound and how to create it. So, regarding the location, it can be superior or temporal, it can be corneal or limbal, and regarding the architecture, it's gonna have three components: the width, the length, and the internal contour. So this is the width, this is the length, and this is the internal contour. So, where should I place my wound? Is it superior better or the temporal is better? Actually, each one has its pros and cons. So, if you are a beginner, you might prefer to start at the superior. However, most of the surgeons with time and with gaining experience, they move to the temporal approach, as they will gain a better surgical access and more room for by manual maneuver, and you will not have any problem with deep set eyes and prominent frontal bones. Also, if you create it temporally, it's going to be farther away from the center of the cornea, so a less astigmatic effect gonna result. On the other hand, the superior approach is having a very important advantage, which is covered by the upper lid, which decreases the risk of endophthalmitis. What about 12 o'clock position? Is it good? Actually, most of surgeons, they find it uncomfortable. So, whatever you decide to put your incision, just create your wounds in a way that it's comfortable for you to hold the instrument, and you should create your paracentesis 60 degrees up to 90 degrees away from the main incision. So, at the end, you have to be safe and do what is best in your hands. Radial location. It means how far is your incision from the center of the cornea, and is it corneal or limbal? And here the size it matters, because wherever you place your incision, there will be a flattening effect along that meridian. So this flattening effect depends on how far you are from the center of the cornea, and this is inversely related to the distance, and how wide is your incision. As small as 2.5 up to 3 millimeter limbal incision is astigmatically neutral, and if you are in need to have a larger incision, maybe you should do a more posterior incision, maybe a scleral tunnel. You should address the pre-existing corneal astigmatism, and you have to know if this astigmatism with the rule or against the rule, and upon that you decide to put your incision temporally or superiorly. And you should be careful in creating the perfect wound when you are using toric IOLs. Moving to the architecture. We mentioned the three components: the width, the length, and the internal contour. So if you do it right, you will ensure the integrity and the stability of your wound. The width, it's predetermined by your keratome size, and it should be compatible to your phaco tip size. If you got a big wound, you will have fluid leaking from the anterior chamber, collapsing AC, and this will make your life difficult. So, in this situation, you might be in need to place an interrupted sutures to make your incision narrower. The ideal length of the tunnel, it's between 1.5 and 2 millimeter to get a squared wound. This size will give you a good surgical access, and it will ensure a self-sealing wound. So, How can you create the perfect tunnel? Actually, it depends on the angulation of your keratome with the cornea. So if it is too steep, you will get a short incision, and this will produce astigmatism, and it will give you unstable anterior chamber. If you are making your keratome too flat, you will get a long tunnel, and this will give a poor surgical access. Actually, you will press your instrument downwards, and this will distort your cornea and give you a poor visibility. And put in your mind that your irrigation port of the phaco might be within the tunnel, and this will increase the risk of corneal burn. So the right length is by doing a stab incision with a keratome passed in the iris plane with slightly upward angulation. So the wound can be constructed in a single plane or a stronger wound, 2 or 3 planes. All profiles, if properly constructed, will give you a self-sealing wound. But you have to get a balanced incision, which means the roof is equal to the thickness of the floor. If you pass your keratome superficially, you will get a superficial corneal flap, and this one can be ruined with the instruments, can get damaged, and might tear. So, and definitely this incision will not be watertight, and you will need to suture it. And if it is too deep, also it's gonna leak, and you will suture it. So uneven incision can induce more astigmatism. Maybe to solve this problem, you can use a pre-calibrated instruments at the beginning until you master the incision creation. Here I want you to look carefully where the keratome passes to the cornea. So it is just in the limbus, nicking the blood vessels, and you can see the mark here in the keratome. You can see this mark at the keratome. Can you repeat it, please? This mark is to guide you about the length of the tunnel. So just piercing the epithelium, this line of the epithelium, when it's reached the mark, you should, with the tip, penetrate the descent, and thus you will get a squared wound. And you should pass the maximum depth up to the descent, and you pull out in the same plane. In case you go posterior, passing the keratome posterior to that point, the BSS fluid can infiltrate the conjunctiva, causes ballooning and accumulation of fluid, and this will disturb the view. And also you can get iris prolapse, especially if the patient is using tamsulosin or the IOP inside the eye is high, so this will increase the severity of the prolapse. And in case you pass it more anterior, the tunnel can encroach the visual axis and cause astigmatism. So remember, the better the phacoincision, the better the surgery. So moving to the second part. So the OVD is your third hand. You have to have it by your side all the time. It will maintain the AC for you during the capsulorhexis. It will protect your corneal epithelium, and it will improve the view. Also, you can use it to inflate the bag for IOL implantation, and it will maintain and provide a barrier for vitreous in case of PCR. Few terminology. Viscoelasticity, it refers to the ability of the solution to return to its original shape after being under stress, like the rubber squash ball. Viscosity, it reflects the solution resistance to flow. So the liquid solutions, they have low viscosity compared to the gel solution. Pseudoplasticity, it refers to the solution's ability to transform from under pressure from the gel form to the liquid form. Pseudoplastic solutions, they have low viscosity at higher pressure, and they have high viscosity in low pressure. Surface tension, it means the coating ability of the substance. A low surface tension substance, it allows better coating and spread. So we apply this in OVD. The cohesive, they maintain space. They have high surface tension, and the dispersive, they have a better for protecting tissue because they spread and having low surface tension. Viscoadaptive, they have the best of both types. At a lower pressure, they are cohesive behavior, and in a high pressure, they have a dispersive behavior. So the characteristic of any OVD depends on the concentration of the material, the molecular weight, and the molecular length. Here is the famous example of the spaghetti and penny. So the cohesive is like the spaghetti. It has long chains, and it is light molecular weight, and they attach to each other, so they are easily evacuated from the AC. On the other hand, the dispersive, they are short chain, high molecular weight, and they are difficult to remove from the AC, so they tend to retain in the AC and get high intraocular pressure. So this is a comparison of various types of the OVD. You can see here that the cohesive are better for capsular protection during capsulorhexis. On the other hand, the dispersive are better for protecting the endothelium. And here, the viscoadaptive, they are better on both, so they can serve you in any situation. Thank you.